Mega. So, audience of 3,
Yeah,
including a cameraman.
but that's great. I met Patricia and I met. Yeah, yeah. So happy
It was
having you here, guys.
it was kind of sprung on him because he didn't know that he was doing this today. I don't think so. Yeah, it's just kind of a surprise. All right. So are we good to go? All good. All right. Awesome. Tue, it's a pleasure to meet you. I've recently discovered your beautiful masterpiece, your origami, and I looked a little bit about your background, you as a person, and also the company as well.
Yeah.
And I have to say, it was a very interesting journey of discovery.
All right.
Yeah. So I want to go back to the kind of start of your career. You studied industrial design or
Yeah, exactly. I studied industrial design, but before that, going back even further, like many kids playing around with Lego, perhaps,
Yes.
You know that?
I do know that, yes. Yeah.
Yeah, and constantly been, into building things, etc., and so on. So, doing, I played around with making balsa wood models, design myself, etc. And I realized that now because balsa wood doesn't like to be bent in 2 directions. It's just a single compound surface that you can make with that one, all right?
Yes.
So it resembles very much what you can do also in steel. But I never thought about it really that much, but let's not hang up about that. So by doing that, but also being very keen on tinkering, when you're younger and so on, and taking things apart and putting them together again and build things. I built a electric scooter when I was 19, which is actually the grandfather to this scooter, in a way, actually. But then eventually went to art school, studying industrial design in Stockholm. And then doing my master's at Royal College of Art in London, vehicle design.
Wow. And this the grandfather,
Yeah.
was that done prior to your studies? Or?
Yeah. That was just, me being, for the joy of just tinkering and building things,
But this was is it the image that we saw in 93?
Yeah.
And that image, that's something that you made before design school?
Yeah, sure.
How did you do that?
I started off, as I said, I made balsa 3 models, so I made a little scale, I think it's like 1:4 or something like that, quarter scale model. And by doing that, I can also, just by, when you make the layout of the design, you can always scale it in a pattern, and you can enhance the scale. So I knew, okay, this looks some way the way it should do, and then I just upscale it, and I made a little wooden bucket. And I remember I took my former girlfriend because I didn't have any driving license, but she had, and we went to the local sheet dealer for steel and picked it up, and then it was just going from there and cutting, hammering, and sawing, and then I didn't have any welding by that time, so I come from outside Stockholm where they used to build boats, all right? So there was still some people doing stainless steel for boats, rails, etc., and so on. And I showed this to an old gentleman who's been working then for many extremely skilled craftsmen. And he took me under his wings. His name is Lasse Sjöström, and I think he should be mentioned because I learned a lot and had the chance to work with someone who, in a workshop that, guides you when you're like 18, 19 years old. That's really, really great. And I haven't realized that until much later on, how much I appreciated that, and also to do that, because it will help you in the design process as well, very much. So a big thank you to Lasse. Yeah.
That bike, I've just got a snapshot in my mind, and maybe the photo looked a lot better than what it was in real life. But it seemed like, am I correct in saying that were there machined parts on there?
It was made out of just ordinary steel, like I think it was 1.2 millimeter steel.
Also, like bending and fabricating.
Yeah, and by that time I took my father's hammer and just hit it over I made a bucket, like a wooden bucket.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then just went from there, and then I met up with the craftsman Lasse there, and he could help me to weld it. So he showed me how to weld, and then I started to weld, and I finally got the key to his workshop, so I can work late at night until his wife threw me out because it was they wanted to sleep.
Wow.
But when you're 19, everything is possible,
Yes.
And the fenders I made from styrofoam. Started to just make a bucket of styrofoam, and then put I think I put aluminium foil. Took my mom's aluminium foil and put it on top, and then I just put fiberglass and sanding fiberglass, and I turned my my former girlfriend's garage, or her father's and mother's garage, into a pile of dust.
With no other intention other than I just want to build something.
I just want to build something, and I thought, even by that time, it was possible to make electric scooter, so it could make like at least 50 kilometers, which was well enough, So I did actually I did test it, but it ended up also at the same time. Let's see now. At the same time, this was just around military service, and just after that, I applied for art school, and of course, I had that bike.
So that obviously helped.
Yeah. But one funny story was that I applied for 3 schools, and one of the schools, they didn't believe me. So, and it was a bit annoying. So when I did the interview for a school in Stockholm, I actually brought the bike itself,
yes.
in order to this is it. And I think that made it for me, so I could, enter the school.
Where did the idea for electrification come in? Because we're talking about early 90s, right?
Yeah. And I bought, first I just bought normal batteries,
But where did you get
the
for
idea
it?
behind it? At my first job, there was this guy who was tinkering with disabled vehicles.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's like so, and I thought, that's something I could, I could take those and make something fun out of that. And I took it from there.
So at that time, it was just nothing more than an interesting experiment.
Yeah, exactly.
Incredible. There's a book that I've never read, but it was doing the rounds when I was at university, and it was called Who Killed the Electric Car? Because apparently back in the early, it's supposed to be a really influential book, especially in as we transition into electrification.
Yeah.
But one of the earliest automobiles was not internal combustion engine, but apparently an electric car.
You had a loaner Porsche.
Right.
Was Porsche did electric car.
There you go.
Yeah.
So I wondered if that was like some big grand planned aspiration of yours, or if it was more just that seems like it could work. Let me give it a shot.
Yeah, I think it's for the love of tinkering, and you have a strong idea that you want to try out as well. And by that time, I was really into scooters. It's something that I never got the cure from. I always loved the old Vespas and Lambrettas and so.
Yes.
And and then when I grew up, there was this the older generation, like 5-10 years older than me. They had the Quadrophenia flu, so there was a lot of scooters around, so you could see them.
The mods and
exactly
that whole vibe.
Yeah.
So before we carry on to what you went on to do in your career, I want to stop at or ask you about Giotto Pizzarini.
Bizzarini,
Yes.
yeah, Giotto Bizzarini.
So you guys did a project together.
Yeah, I mean, so it started off. I was in school in industrial design in Stockholm, and I was going to make my final degree work for bachelor's, and I run into a guy Klaus Müller who had an idea. He had a pizzerini himself, and he had been to a honeymoon with his second wife in Italy, and by that time, he just went to the phone book and he looked him up and called him. So they went there, and that's how that project started. But it didn't have any a stylist to the project. And that's, to make a long story short, I mean, that's how I got involved with it, doing my bachelor's. And then it just took up from there, really. And so it meant that I started to work on that project together with Giotto Pizzarini. So I was still in school by that time. I then had started the Royal College of Arts. So I visited him in the weekends, and and it's quite interesting because
But we're in Italy now.
Yeah, now we're in Italy.
Wow.
Yeah, so he hadn't, and I mean he doesn't speak English at all. And I don't speak Italian, but some way or another, you kind of communicate, and it worked fine. We worked together, and I learned a lot. I mean, especially for, again, I was young back then, and working with someone who's been so influential as Giotto Pizzarini.
Yeah, for those that don't know, he did the 250 GTO. For
Yeah. So yeah, he was responsible of turning the 250 short wheelbase into the next level, because the E-Type was
that was the benchmark.
The
right?
benchmark. So they said we're gonna be beaten. So Enzo Ferrari took Giotto Pizzarini and three craftsmanship and just locked them up in a barn next to the factory. Nobody knew that they were there. So what he did, very much. I mean, and this is also, on the learning curve for me, having him telling these stories, his daughter Elena, she could translate as well. So, and him telling the stories, how they did it, because the short wheelbase, I always remember he was also always talking about the chassis. So he always said the chassis is molto rigidi, and it means it was molto rigidi for the 250 GTO, and you can understand what molto rigidi means, right?
Yes.
So what they did with the 250 GTO, they put the engine further back, and they also the short wheelbase has sleeve springs, so they added coil springs to that one to get a better handling and everything. So. And also worked a lot with aerodynamics and showing this, and I've seen this, and this is the way he worked all the time, kind of scrutinizing the car and see what can you improve, what do you need to do. So center of gravity always has to be, lower, etc. The chassis has to be stronger in order for the wheels to actually stay on the ground and do their work, and so on. And I remember one special occasion, we were up in Nibiaya where he had his workshop. Nibiaya, I think it means beyond the clouds.
Beyond
but
the
Nibia,
clouds.
it's
Beautiful.
yeah. So he used to be in Livorno. It's not far from Pisa. So up there in the hills, he had his little workshop, and we were working there. And then I opened a cabinet, and out came all this. I was like. An avalanche of drawings, and then it's took one of his drawings, and he's short, and then and then you have this guy coming up to me, almost no teeth, Lamborghini V12. So it was one of the original drawings for the Lamborghini V12. So that was really inspiring as well.
Incredible. I read a quote that he said, I'm not a designer. He said, I'm a worker, because he.
Absolutely, you're 100% correct.
He's just, in those days, there wasn't design school, was there?
No.
It was just go and build it, almost.
Yeah. And I think that's extremely important, again, if you because it becomes like totally different disciplines. I mean, although you do something, you make something like a car, which is something that moves, etc., and so on. And we created stylists, and we have the engineering team, and they work pretty much inside us very much. And I think with the process that we do, with STILFOLD process, I think the biggest hurdles that we have to overcome is that you have to integrate those two disciplines
as early on as possible.
Yeah, because they're totally linked to each other. Because the what you see, the exterior, is also the structure.
Yes.
So, so I can just encourage anyone, you know, who wants to do in car design or, you know, something like that, to go in and workshop and do things, you know, and understand how things works. But at the same time, it's a bit frustrating, because we people, we like to put things in order. It's like, okay, you're a stylist, you're a designer. It's like, and then we have to perceive what these people do. And as Giotto said, like, I'm not a designer. I'm a worker. I do things.
Yeah.
So it doesn't really matter what. I mean, he created these kind of things.
Yes. Yes.
That's what matters.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, there's an incredible life lesson there, which I guess you've taken into your career, but also your latest venture as well. But before we get on to that, I need to also ask, were you not tempted at that moment to pursue the world of automotive at all, cars?
Yeah, sure, I did an internship with BMW, and I think it was really, really interesting, of course.
In Munich?
Yeah, in Munich. But again, I felt also very much that it's very separated, you know.
Yes.
I do realize I have one foot in, you know, making things, and so on, and the other foot in the, you know, how things look. So I think I wish in the future they could be more integrated, you know. Because
do you think it's possible in big OEMs like that?
I think it's hard. Unfortunately, but some OEMs, you have people everywhere who's got a bit of, you know, understanding for it. Then it's just a matter if they have, if they high rank enough, you know, to
influence change. Yeah. Were you there around Chris Bangle's time?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So I saw the Gina project there.
Wow, with Anders.
Yeah, before. Yeah, exactly. Anders Warming. Yeah.
Yes.
And
he's been on this podcast.
All right, cool.
And Chris as well. Yeah, I mean remotely with Chris.
All right.
With Anders, it was at his studio.
But it's extremely interesting work, because it was a brand communicator, or a communicator of how to perceive surfaces, and it was extremely clever. And it was a very interesting time.
It's funny when I look at the Stilride.
Yeah.
I see Gina. The first thing I saw was like, you know, that.
Yeah.
That's
the
right. Kind of concave surfaces coming to a point, and it was the first thing that sprung to mind actually. And I had no idea that you had been to BMW actually.
Yeah, it's you're right, because the Gina project, I mean, you had this kind of spandex, and you protruded, or you poked kind of surfaces, and then you created the surface out from that.
Yes.
So it was very natural driven in a way.
Yeah.
I suppose that it's the same thing with our technology. You fold something over a curve, and it's more or less what the material wants to do itself.
Yes.
So that's what's create the design of it, you know.
I wanted to ask you about that as well, because I'm a 3D guy.
Yeah.
When I first heard you talking about the two surfaces intersecting over a curve.
Yeah.
In my mind, if I was going to build that, I'm going, well, I'm going to take a flat sheet, I'm going to cut it in one way, and I'm going to do the same on the other one, and then you've got to join them.
Yeah.
But you guys don't do that.
No.
Can you explain a little bit more how you are able to do that? Because I've seen videos and it makes sense to me visually, but I still, if I think of, if you were going to bend something over a curve, the surface itself would do something weird.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
you're
you
right.
guys are not forging the surface, are you?
No. It's just it's a matter of there are two ways to do this. I mean, you can go from 3D to 2D. That's one thing. But going from 2D to 3D, that's another way to do it as well. And they're not really linked to each other. One, I mean, if you going to make, for instance, with the bike, we had a technical package, of course, which is the batteries and all that kind of stuff, and then you have the ergonomics, which is the ergonomic package. And between those two packages, you have your design volume, and that's where you're able to make your structural surfaces and as well the design. So we started to, you have to kind of understand also how to direct the forces, of course, and to create strong structures between. So what we do, when you have a surface, instead of, I mean, now this is part, I don't know, okay, you record this, but let's take this one as an example. Yours is better because yours is orange, right? So imagine this being, looking at the batteries from the top,
Yes.
right? So if you're going to fold yourself around this just with straight folds, it would look like a stop sign, right?
Yes.
But if you have a curve, you can just go with one flow around this, And as you know, forces, they like to travel along the surfaces, etc.
Yeah.
So creating first a sweep like that,
Yes.
but then you have to make an enclosure. So you have to break that single compound surface like that. And you have to break it.
Right. That's it. Okay.
Yeah.
I've got it. Yeah. No, I got it.
Got really technical here,
Yeah.
but yeah.
Well, the name of the podcast is called Crown Unfiltered. Crown in the automotive term, crown, like surface crown.
Surface crowning,
Yes.
like crowning the surface.
Crowning the surface.
All
Yeah.
right,
So
yeah.
I didn't want to have design or car in case for moments like this, where we are somehow connected, but
Yeah.
it's not directly car design. So, but there's a crossover, and
Yeah.
so talking about these sort of things is totally also
Yeah.
okay. Yeah, it's all,
okay.
It's all good.
All
it's
right,
all
fine.
Good. It's all good. You guys have created not just a product, but for lack of a better term, a system.
Yeah.
And I think one of the problems that I personally have, like with the whole electrification thing, is that people don't necessarily fully understand what product life cycle means.
No.
And I think it seems like you guys have really started with that.
Yeah, for sure.
Can you talk a little bit about that?
All right. I start and you say stop then. All right. So first and foremost, I mean, we wanted to create a process because if you go at steel is perfect material. Okay, flat sheet metal is great because you'll find it all over the world, all right? And you have products done in flat sheets, you find them everywhere, all right? But if just to paint with a very wide brush, you have more or less two directions to follow. The first one is to go into metal workshop, where you can fold, cut, and weld. So the refinement of the product is quite low, but the entry of to make a product like that is also quite low, right?
Yeah.
The very opposite in the case with stamping, like a car body. You stamp things, level of refinement is very, very high, but in order to get the money back, you need to make hundreds of thousands. And so you start off with a very, very big environmental footprint. So,
which you refer to as a debt almost before you've even started.
Yeah,
like
because
you're in a deficit.
Yeah, because you need a factory and you need the tooling and you need also in order to get your payment back, you need to make those as many, a lot of cars, or a lot of components. Or,
Yes.
So thinking about that, is it possible to cherry pick here? Can you have a high level of refinement and a low entrance? Because by the end of the day, no matter what you do, it also you have to persuade the people with the money. And in this case, thankfully, they go hand in hand because if you can make a product with you don't have to put a lot of money on stake. You don't need to make a lot of a big infrastructure around it, and you can. In our case, we just to going back here and talk about the process itself, because when creating a process like that we have, because it's actually adds on to an already existing manufacturing to the folding industry. So see if I can get this right to just describe it. So let's say a workshop that folds things. They cut things with a laser, all right? And they bend things straight. And that's all like digital driven, because all the informations to do that comes from a digital code, all right?
Right.
So we wanted to build upon that kind of way of working, right? So our machine can actually fold over curves together with robots, and the way it works is that we give the information from the CAD data, and once you cut out the sheet itself, and then we can perform the folding with a robot arm, that guides the sheet metal through the tool, which creates the folding itself.
Okay, so there is a tool.
Yeah, it's a tool, and the tool itself, it looks like more or less like an English wheel. So now we got patents for it, so I can talk about it. But it's basically two rolls that angles, and then you have a top wheel, and they all meet at one point,
yes.
right? So we can fold this, So in the case of the body for the outer body for the bike, we fold the beam that I showed you before.
Yes.
Yeah. So it's two folds and a weld.
Yes.
So we can fold these two first, and then we put it in between the rolls, and then it becomes more or less like an anvil, and then we can push the surface and then close it and then weld it together.
Wow.
So that's how we create an enclosure.
And do I have it correct in saying that you guys have developed your own software to work out what is the most optimum way to create these folds?
Yeah, because when you make the design, you need to make sure that when the design is unfolded, it doesn't fold over itself. Then you have to adjust that, so you need to adjust that in the software as well. And by doing that, then we go from 2D to 3D. But when we make the design itself, we go from 3D and make sure it's fully developed surface in 2D. So sorry for being so technical. It is actually not that technical when you see it.
Yes.
It's play around with paper and you understand.
Exactly.
You can make a curve on a poster or post-it.
Yes.
And then fold, and you understand how a curve fold works.
Yeah. Yes. But you guys what's confusing is that you guys are defying what a piece of paper or piece of sheet metal would normally do. It's doing something that I've not seen before, with the process that I've also not really...
You've been to McDonald's?
I have.
You had eaten fries?
Yes.
Then the little container where the fries comes in?
Right, okay.
It's curve folded.
It's true. It is true.
Yeah?
Yes. Okay. No, fair enough.
Curve folding it's not that we invented curve folding, because curve folded is not new in that sense.
Yeah, but what was confusing for me is that I didn't realize that the negative side, for example, was cut in the way that you would cut a suit, for example, where you taper in a shirt. Yeah. Right. So it's a similar sort of concept as well. If we go back to the product life cycle thing, and you guys have created what you call the digital value chain.
Yeah.
What can you just unpack that?
All right. So what is a digital value chain? Yeah, it's something that describes a process which is a digital process. So again, when we design something, we can make sure that we can unfold our design onto a flat sheet. And of course, once we've done that and we're done with the design, now we want to manufacture it, then we cut it out, which can be done in a normal metal workshop, right? So, and then with this sort of English wheel that we call the steel tool, we can form these structures, all right? So any workshop that has this kind of, has a robotic arm, it's suitable for that kind of workshop, right? And then, so we have a workshop that up in Stockholm that helps us out doing this, right? And then you're doing other stuff for ABB and et cetera, and Hitachi and so on, and these kind of guys. So they already make stuff, right? So it's very suitable for us to make the bike with them, right? They all have all the machines and everything. And then we put the bike together, pretty much like a poker jockey, it fits together.
Yeah.
And there we got it. That's the bike.
And okay, so I misunderstood. I thought the value chain. I thought this was, well, it kind of does also tie into where you said you would have local manufacturers all over the world, so where they could get locally sourced steel, they could use a locally sourced metal worker in what you guys described as hubs. Do you imagine, like, your vision for the company? Do you imagine you guys having hubs all over the world and using local manufacturers, or do you imagine outsourcing or licensing out the products, or all of the above?
That is a very good question. I think we also have to move where we find the most traction for this technology as well. So, but as for now, we see also a license, to kind of empower already existing workshops, because there are thousands of them around the world, and it's much better to do that. But we do also understand that they need a very much of we call it a recipe for making it.
Yes,
a working instruction that is very, very straightforward for them to follow.
Yes.
So that's also one of the hurdles that we work with now. But we overcome that very much, like with every bike, with every chassis we make now, we move that process forward and forward.
Right.
Because it's very important to understand these kind of things as well.
Of course, yeah.
So the vision would be, that you, instead of making this bike in a big gigafactory somewhere, and then ship it all around the world, it's better to have it done, locally.
Yes.
So
absolutely. I mean, that ties into the carbon footprint, and that's when I first heard the term digital value chain. That's the value. This is what I was taking the value to be. But and I guess that's also part of the question with regard to the sustainability thing, and using, not always creating something new, not saying like we need to go and build a monster factory everywhere. Maybe it is that we use what we've got already. That's part of the carbon footprint. It's not just the fact that, okay, great, you've got this vehicle here that doesn't emit greenhouse gases, but where's the energy coming from? Where's it made? Are we using all of these things? And that is my gripe. And batteries is a whole other thing as well. But I realize that there are a lot of companies and organizations, and hopefully governments as well, that are working towards more ethically, sustainably sourced batteries. I spoke to Stefan Itterborn from Cake as well, and I have to say that he was incredibly transparent in saying, like, just buying an electric vehicle is not going to, you're not saving the world, and it's a process to improve the battery technology and where it comes from, and sustainability factor with regard to that.
Especially when the biggest footprints is actually when the vehicle is made.
Yeah. Exactly, and that's the thing, and the thing that scares me about these large-scale manufacturers, and I won't mention any names, but the thing is, a group of people, seemingly quite often misinformed, decide, okay, the next route to go is, for example, electrification. So then we commit the whole business to mass producing hundreds of thousands of products in that direction, and in doing so, create this monster, what you guys refer to as a carbon debt before you've even started.
Yeah.
And then they'll wake up one day and go, shit, maybe that wasn't quite the right direction.
No.
Because it seems like, to me, from all the different people that I've spoken to, is that we would have different technologies and powertrains for different applications.
Sure. And it's also quite interesting because we had a chance to meet up with Mercedes in Singapore, and also it's quite interesting to listen to the we spoke to the responsible for body in white, it's doing all the pressing and etc. And I mean, in the future when we have autonomous cars, we don't need all. He referred, we were looking at the S-Class, for instance, and he referred, we go around in tanks because people crash. But when we have autonomous cars, with the reduction of crash, will also probably. I mean, we can also lower the
speed as well.
Yeah, exactly. Or the what do you call the crash rate also.
Crash rating, yeah. It's true. I mean, I worked for a concept studio that Volkswagen owned here in Potsdam ages ago, and they have rebranded now as a future center. So they were, for a long time, were very much looking into, what is the future of transportation going to look like, and also looking at different business models, et cetera, et cetera. But they ran a few simulations, and there's quite a cool animation of and I've seen this in adverts as well, just crazy CGI stuff, but just like an intersection where everything is kind of moving together. Yeah. And if everybody was driving, you'd freak out. But if it's all controlled, then all of a sudden, you could reduce the speed, but somehow get to places faster because you're not having to take into account human error all the time.
Exactly. You can probably rule out all the red lights, etc., and just have them flow as you described.
Right. Yeah.
Through the processing.
Exactly. Yeah. Before you guys have founded Stilride, what were you working independently as well, or what were you?
Well, I mentioned working in Italy and so on, but also with a short while for BMW doing that, and but otherwise I've been working with both vehicle design and industrial design. The interesting thing with working with design is you don't think that it's going to be interesting to work. For instance, I remember I did a project for a mining instrument. Well, this instrument's being about 2 meters high, but what it did is it's a scanner for drill cores, and how can that be interesting, from a design point of view? But the reason why I tell about this is that it was also, that's typically a company, they make very low volume products, but they wanted to drive the design very much, because this, not only was this instrument going to sit in a very harsh environment, it had to look at that it costs as much as it did. It cost like 5 Mercedes S-Class. Jeez, it was really, really expensive. So I did this stainless kind of steel costume to it. And that was also a way for me to think about these things, especially when we talked about, we didn't have the money to stamp the sheet metal, but we still had to make something that looked really, really, refined. So that turned out to be a very interesting project in itself. So I can show you a picture later on, but it was like a trampoline towards also this folding technique to explore that as well.
At what point do do you say, okay, I've had this idea floating around for ages. I want to jump in with both feet.
So what we did was my partner Jonas
He's a
Nybang.
childhood friend as well.
We
right?
childhood friends, all right, and we always been talking about. We had this breakfast when we lived close to each other, like inventors breakfast, you know, where we spoke about doing things together, and then you have life comes in between, etc. and so on. And he's working at Björn Borg or somewhere else, and I worked as independent, and I worked at other companies, Scania or whatever. And then you meet up in life, and now you have the time, And I showed him the chassis of the bike, saying like, wouldn't it be possible? Think about if we could fold this. And then I showed him, because it's just, it's like 4 pieces. You could do something about this. And then we started to talk about that, and he had done a project together with a organization helping out the Swedish steel industry. So we went up there and showed them the chassis, just a paper chassis, very, very rough. I had like a toilet paper for for the fork.
The stand,
It's like the stem, exactly. And they said, yeah, why not? It seems like a cool idea. And it took off there. So it started off like a research project. And then we managed to make, something, yes, we could curve fold. We found out that we could curve fold. And then also we make a product that people cared about. And then we just decided, why not go for this, let's do it. So that's what we did.
I'm going to ask you a question now that I've already asked somebody this morning that also they founded their own mobility startup. That the question is, as a creative, as a designer, you tend to get sucked into the details, right? So you are all about like, how can I make this material do this, and how can I make sure that this product is absolutely perfect? And it seems like Jonas is Jonas, right?
Yeah.
And he's your engineering counterpart, for lack of a better term. And then, but that's also still a small part of the puzzle in terms of creating a business. So who and what steps do you take to establish all the plumbing, as it were, to go, okay, we need, this is people, if we want to start getting investment, people are going to want to see a business plan. They are going to want to understand how we're going to make money, supplying the carbon footprint and the sustainability factor and all that sort of stuff. Who or what was the process with regard to taking this prototype and forming a business around it?
I mean, it was very much driven between us. Because I think we like cross. So he's coming from the marketing side.
Ah, okay. So not engineer. Okay.
No, he's not an engineer.
Oh, okay.
No, he breaks things.
All right. Well, thanks for not embarrassing me. Okay. All right. Okay. No, that's fine. Okay. So he's from a marketing background, but
but we kind of, we kind of. When we discuss things, etc., and so on, we kind of leverage on each other, climb on each other's ladder, and also you have to somewhere you just have to make a decision, like, go for it, try it.
Yeah, sure.
And I think we had a lot of in our background, to give us a credibility, people believe in us, and etc.
Yeah, sure.
And then from there on, we just we started off with this governmental founded grant.
Yes.
And we could make the first bike, of course, and then we did have something to show.
Okay.
And then we just took it from there,
And then are you approaching investors directly and okay.
Yeah.
And is that the reason why I'm asking all this stuff is that, as I said, we've got a lot of young designers that listen to this, and they maybe feel like, oh, well, I can't get a job at my dream job, a dream car brand or whatever, or maybe they're in that dream car brand and they hate it and they want to get out, and it's just kind of demystifying that process a little bit, because we understand the thing of like, okay, you need to come up with a business model, and then you go for funding. But what does that funding process actually look like? And this is the question. I mean, you hear advice all the time with regard to partner up with somebody that maybe has complementing skill sets. So like two designers is probably, I mean, it could work, but it's maybe doesn't make sense. Maybe it makes more sense to partner up with a business guy, or do you need 5 different skill sets? That's
I have to
maybe
admit,
too many questions. Sorry.
But I have to admit, I mean, first and foremost, I think, I mean, especially if we talk about designers, etc., we are all, most of us are very passionate driven.
Yes.
Yeah. So trying to balance your passion also, and be you have to be the most critical person towards your own, idea.
Sure.
And so be extremely critical about what you're doing, and not trying to make everything at once.
Yeah.
So, for instance, if we would start to talk about, we would like to manufacture things, we just send the computer data over there, and then we're going to fold it like that, and then we can go into doing this and that, Instead of doing that, you have to shop the elephant. I don't know whether you say that. We say that in Swedish anyway. Shop the elephant,
Okay. I've never heard that term before, but I think
you kind of understand what it means, yeah?
Yes.
So,
build it and they will come
step by step.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
So I'd say when it comes to investors, etc., it's the same philosophy as you did when you were a kid, trying to stay out longer and longer. All right. So if your mom and dad says, Sam, come home at 8 o'clock, and you come home at 8 o'clock, right? Then you can go out at 8:30 next time,
right,
etc., etc. So I think it's very important. This is just simple psychological,
Yes.
thinking,
Yes.
So you just meet your what you promised.
Yes.
And if you can, be a bit more, I mean, you don't have to do everything at once,
Yeah.
You just do step by step.
And start.
Yeah. Because, I mean, I think people always going to love, things that happens,
Yes.
So just do it, And then, I've made so many, things that hasn't gone anywhere,
Mm-hmm.
But they all kind of tend to one thing leads to another, and then finally you end up with a forehead this thick.
Yeah, that's also another way of putting it. Yeah, but that's great advice. It's saying, like, just maybe don't overthink it, and go for it, especially if you believe in it. But also understand that there's no guarantees at the end of the day, right?
No, I mean, we're very happy to be here, having the bike here, although it's a prototype, and we know that we have to, do refinements of it, of course, and so, etc. But we are also under that same kind of pressure. We need to meet up with what we undertook us to do,
Mm-hmm.
I think that's just psychological, way of doing things. Do what you say that you will do, and then take it step by step.
Last question.
Yeah.
What is next for Stilride?
All right. So we have Stilride is our platform for making, our own products. And the great thing with having an own platform like that is that we do what we want. We can drive the technology. So of course, for us at Stilride, now we're doing this bike. We're looking into other two-wheelers as well, and how we can expand, etc. Of course, but we also have the other one, which is the STILFOLD. We have some really, really interesting. I think for us, it's been quite easy showing the bike, proving our technology. That opens up a lot of doors for us. So that's why we can speak to like Polestar or Mercedes or BMW, Volkswagen, Scania. We spoke to many others as well, you know, and having projects together with Alstom, making trains, etc.
So do you guys see this, your vision for the company? Is it the bike? Is it kind of a vehicle to bring awareness to the platform, or okay?
Yeah, very much so. I think again, you have to prove your thing. It's again, you know, back to this psychological talking, you know, that you say that you're doing something. Okay, we say that this technique reduces this and that much, you know, material weight. It saves this and that, you know, and then we can prove it in this project, you know. Mm-hmm. And for us being a startup, we have done some projects. I don't know whether you've seen that we did some small short films. You know, we had one with bridge.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I saw where you talked about the original bridge in Stockholm was shipped over from China.
It actually shipped over from China. Like, can you imagine? They build, you know, a bridge.
Why
in
was that?
China.
Because of money? Just because of saving money?
I don't know. It was like, it's unheard of.
That's ridiculous.
It isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So and then you don't think about the environmental footprint, really.
Yeah.
And and then we can go and talk about that. That's another pod program.
Yes.
But and then we did also one with the trailer, and we're having one coming out next week.
Yeah.
Showing that our technique can be implemented in very different, you know, in scale and different products, etc. Okay. So it's like just showing the ability with the technique and what it'll do, you know. And
specifically to folding or
folding, what the folding technique can do.
And so that's the thing, right?
For STILFOLD.
Okay.
Yeah, for STILFOLD.
STILFOLD.
For STILFOLD. So this is very also important to, you know, STILFOLD is the technology.
Yes.
We want to show what we can do with the technology.
Yes.
Stilride is our own brand.
Got it.
So Stilride, we do whatever we want to do with Stilride, right?
Okay.
So now we do bikes because we love bikes.
Okay.
And I mean, and also it's very good in many ways to have that kind of bait, because you attract a lot of great what do you say? Help me out there, Sam. Competence or like
yes. Oh, talent. Yeah,
talent.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes. Okay. Well.
Yeah.
Tue, I thoroughly enjoyed it. You're a fascinating person. Your background is amazing, and the project is incredible.
Thank you.
And I have to profess to, when I first saw it, I was like, you know, being the ignorant person that I am, I was like, wow, it looks a bit heavy. I don't know if I would put this line like that and whatever. And then I started, like, when I understood the technology and how it was made, I absolutely love it. I'm really into it.
All right.
It's super, super cool.
Makes me happy to hear.
So, thank you very much. You're an inspirational person.
Thank you.
And it was a pleasure. Thank you very much.
Tack så mycket.
Okay. Tack så mycket, yes. Thank you.